Adolf Hitler's the greatest salesman ever lived. Yeah. How do you get people to do what they did?
Why is the youth today so financially screwed? Or they're just soft?
Soft. This much water will be more than a gallon of gasoline. I do know how to keep my mouth shut when I have to. I have no more to prove to myself, but I want to bring as many meatheads across the line to create generational wealth as I can.
If you could go back and tell your broke younger self one thing that would change everything, what would it be?
Take faster action.
Mark, back here at Shapiro Capital, and we're doing a podcast with none other than Dan Peña. And if you notice a little quiver in my voice, I'm actually nervous because this is probably the most important podcast that I've ever had. Dan probably doesn't really know much about me or my background and so forth, but this guy is the guy, okay? We've reacted to a lot of his videos. He says some controversial stuff. I try to follow in his footsteps, and he elicits you to actually think, and instead of being a little bitch in life, get out of your own way. Dan, I want to welcome you. I also want to wish you a happy 80th birthday.
Thank you very much. It was yesterday, and I'm pleased to be here. Thankful.
That is actually a big thing for us. Give us 5 minutes of your life growing up in Jacksonville. And
well, I was born there, but I didn't grow up there. In fact, the 3-day party we just ended yesterday for my birthday. One of the guys there is my longtime friend of 70 years, a guy named Howard Stein. When I see your on the back of your head, yeah, I've been to more bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs than I got gray hair, you know. And but I was born there at the end of World War II, and then my dad was in the Naval Air Force, got released from the Naval Air Force, and moved back to Los Angeles, East LA, where he was a policeman. And so I spent my formative years in East LA, which are about 4 or 5 miles east of downtown, right on the other side of actually Dodger Stadium. I went to school there, got in trouble there, and ultimately, in fact, the Doris Place Elementary where I went to school, I now support, and they're having their 100th anniversary this year. And so the only other famous alumni from that school is Marilyn Monroe. But Marilyn was 19 years ahead of me. And so I got in a lot of trouble, and ultimately I got thrown out of the school district and the entire LA school district, and we had to move to San Fernando Valley. And San Fernando Valley was wheat and grain fields, and not the 2 million people it's got now. But I got thrown out of school because I tried to kill my teacher in grammar school. Fortunately, I was not successful. He moved 6
I can't help but laugh. I love it.
He moved 6 or 7 inches. Otherwise, when I dropped the aquarium from the second story, it would hit him square on the top of the head and killed him, I'm sure. But anyway, so we moved to the valley to a house my dad couldn't afford, and he had to get 2 extra jobs, security. He was security at May department stores and Bonds Market, in addition to collecting his $142 a month salary for being a cop. That's what they paid in those days. And my mother was overwhelmed to think that I still got in trouble because she thought it was the environment that made me bad. Mm-hmm. And then she found out I was making the environment bad because we went to the valley and I did all kinds of crazy shit. Got arrested a lot, thrown in jail. And this was my dad was a high profile cop, very high profile. In fact, he ran the Valley Division of the LA Police Department, and this is the one I'm getting in all the trouble. So I finally graduated from high school, and any knowledge, I was just writing an email about somebody that I must have gotten when I took philosophy, this by osmosis. And it's Descartes, I think therefore I am. And I don't know why I know that, but I know a lot of stuff, but it must have been through osmosis because I never took my books home. And I don't know about now. They used to give you a locker at the beginning of the semester. You take your books first day, you collect them. And so I'd collect them, put them in there. The last day of the semester, I'd go to remove the books. The books had never been opened. There was a dust mark where my books were in the locker. I never did a piece of homework. I never did anything. I graduated with a 2.55 average out of 4, with no distinction. In fact, they asked me not to attend graduation because I was going to fuck it up and disrupt it. And I threatened to burn the library down, amongst a few other things. But we attended the graduation. This was at Reseda High in 1963. We had one of my buddies, cohorts in crime, he's passed away now, said, Martin Luther King is marching this year. We have rights. They cannot refuse us graduation. So we went to graduation uninvited, disrupted shit, did all kinds of bad things. And then I started college. I flunked out 3 times. In 1964, I went to San Jose State University because Playboy magazine voted it, if you couldn't get your willy wet there, it's because you didn't have a dick, quote unquote. So I went there and immediately flunked out. But he was right, or they were right, or whoever wrote the article was right, because if you couldn't get laid at San Jose State in 1964, it's because you didn't have a dick. Then I flunked out of a couple more schools, and then I had a bright idea. I said, let's go to Vietnam. So we volunteered for the draft at the height of the Vietnam War, 1966.
And by the way, thank you. I did see that.
You're welcome. And we went to, I extended my stay. The 3 of us, we enlisted on the buddy plan at that time. You could enlist with 2 other people, and they promised you, guaranteed in writing, that you were going to go to the same duty stations together. Well, the last time I saw my 2 best buddies was the day we signed that goddamn piece of paper, because I went off, and one went off to measure over 30,000 brassieres and panties for nurses in Fort Sam Houston. That's what he did during the war. The other one went to Chicago. My Jewish buddy, Howard Stein, went to Chicago and fought for the Army and had an undefeated record. And I went.
He was a boxer.
Yes, he was. Still, well, he's 80 now, but he's still in pretty good shape. And I decided to extend, become an officer. And I did. And of 180 or 90 that we started in the class, 106 graduated from OCS. And the 106, 6 of us, they sent to NATO, Europe. 100 went to Vietnam. And unfortunately, about 40% got killed. So I'm in NATO, and I love the military. I love the discipline. I love the beating. And at that time in the 60s, they knocked the shit out of you. They did all kinds of things. They had people die in training. Okay? And so, as I said in the last 3 days of my extended 80th party, I was in the officers club as a young 2nd lieutenant, and I had just gotten an award from Army for doing something spectacular. And the 3-star general, General Woodrow Vaughn, who changed my life, he says, Danny, a young man like you could get wealthy in the civilian sector. A fucking light bulb went out over my head. Peña, wealth. Danny, riches. Danny, hot chicks. Danny, hot cars. All happened instantaneously over my head. And I was out of the Army in 6.5 months. And I went back to school because I promised my mother, nobody had graduated from university in her family. I went back to graduate, which was a waste of time for me, but I did it anyway. And the rest is history. I went to Wall Street, where the action was at that time, and I made a
public too.
Yep, and I made a gazillion dollars, and 2 of my former bosses on Wall Street, Bear Stearns, were at my party the last 2 days. One's 80, one's 90, and they said they related stories to the people that were there. And they said that Dan is playing undertone to the craziness that he extended on the Wall Street. I did a lot of things for the first time. I took an option. You understand options because you're in the property.
Absolutely.
I took the first option public on the planet on my birthday, 39th birthday, 1984. And I turned 0 into 400 million with a stroke of the hammer when it says it's public. Yep. And I went to the same place. I did the same thing in Amsterdam. Made another couple $100 million, and then they outlawed it. The Peña rule, because they can't say Peña. The Peña rule, you can't take options public. Now, you have to have them financed and the things that you probably understand better than I do. And so, but I've been doing this kind of stuff, and then I got thrown out of Great Western when Kuwait was invaded by Iraq. My biggest shareholder on that public company, Great Western Resources, was the sovereign fund of Kuwait. And they owned 29.9% of the company. And when Iraq was rolling through with their tanks, everybody thought, one, the Allies were not going to enter the war. So the stock kept dropping every day, and 10, 20 million bucks a day. I was losing more or less on average because I was the largest shareholder. I still own 60% of the company. And but I knew how much money Kuwait had. They weren't going to run out of money. And then when the Allies entered the war to help Kuwait beat Saddam Hussein, they thought, well, certainly they can't have the kind of money to rebuild Kuwait that it's going to take. When I look at Gaza now, let's segue here for a second. They are underestimating by hundreds of billions, maybe trillions, what it would take to rebuild Gaza. If anybody's going to rebuild it.
No one's.
Okay, why? But they can't
Well,
talk
wait,
about
wait, let me rephrase that. We know who has the money to rebuild it, and also the smarts, but they're fighting over that. And I never really talk too much about the state of Israel, even though I have a lot of family that have left this country and made what's called aliyah. It means to ascend and become an Israeli citizen. But if you go by the Torah, the land belongs to the Jews. And I'm an extremist with my beliefs, similar to you. And if you want to get rid of Palestinians, you need to exterminate them like cockroaches. Now, that's a pretty controversial thing.
Well, I've been in business with the Israeli government.
They're not easy.
No.
I wasn't. And it's tough to do business with them, too. Because they'll rip your kishkas out.
Yeah, and they always kept saying, it's all right, Danny, if you're a Jew. And I said, what do you mean it's all right? Because I'm not a Jew, okay? But it's all right. It's just us in the room. And no. And when we signed our contract, we signed it on the Sabbath, which a lot of real straight line Jews don't believe.
Right.
But the rabbi of Israel, in a room not much bigger than this, came up with a reason why we could sign it on the Sabbath. Okay, and he said a few prayers, and
That's funny.
the head of the Israeli National Oil Company was a 2-star general, MIT PhD. I said, when they said we're not going to sign it on the Sabbath, I left for the airport with my 2 partners, one of which was a Jew, and we got arrested at the airport and brought back. And about 10:30 at night, we might have signed the contract. But I've been in business with the Kuwaitis and the Saudis that always told me that the Jews were going to fuck me, and the Jews told me that they were going to fuck me. But neither one fucked me, okay? And I made an inordinate amount of money. Now, I didn't make hardly any money with being in business with the Israeli National Oil Company. I put up $7 million, and they matched it. In theory, they matched it.
Right.
They didn't really match anything. And then I went back to the United States to raise $40 million, which they were going to match again. So we were going to have a short $100 million to work with to find oil and gas because nobody had it before. And then the Lebanese war broke out, and I get a call, anonymous call, from the head of the Israeli National Oil Company. This call's not happening, Dan. This is all public information, so I'm not telling any secrets now. But we're not going to honor our commitment. In fact, the $7 million that you gave us is already gone. So I'm thinking, I got to tell all these Jews in Manhattan that. So I went back to the biggest synagogue with the governor, former governor of New York, Hugh Carey, who was a Catholic, not a Jew. And I said, we got to tell him. So there was about 1,500 screaming Jews with about 150 Hasidic Jews in the audience. As soon as the words rolled out of my lips that the money was gone, the Hasidic Jews wanted to skin me. They come running towards.
Well, they would have if they could have.
Yeah. And so we had security because of Governor Carey, former governor. He said, we should leave. I paid them all back. It took me 4 or 5 years. That's the only reason I think I can still go to Manhattan, because some of those guys are still alive. So getting back to when they talk about rebuilding, it's a pipe dream.
Of course.
Yeah, it just, I don't know what they're smoking. It's a pipe dream.
Think about the disasters that we've had in this country. And we happen to be the financially, except for the Saudis, the financially strongest economy in the world, because without this economy, the world doesn't work. There is multiple catastrophes that have happened over the years, and there are still things 2 and 3 decades later that haven't been rebuilt.
Correct.
Thank God for, I don't want to call it an insurance company, but a Jewish developer, Larry Silverstein, that figured out a way to make money on the world's greatest tragedy in this country, on American soil. He figured out how to make money on it. Now, obviously, he's a very successful mega developer, but the insurance companies paid for it. And I would say that it probably was all laid off on Lloyd's because our projects aren't that big, but I had my former father-in-law was partners with a guy named Ace Greenberg from AIG.
Ace Greenberg, also formerly Bear Stearns CEO.
Yeah. I will tell you that we used to borrow money from Bear Stearns. They were like a French whore. They would do anything to get our deals done, and they would say, "What do you want for leverage?" And they would give me exactly what I asked for. I always wanted to have some skin in the game, which I know you preach. But that skin in the game is probably the 20% that my mother insisted on when I got my bris, my 20% off, because that's what a Jewish mother insists on everything. And we did a lot of business with them. It was sad to see them fail. They failed on their own. Everybody failed on their own.
Two of my former bosses that were at my party, they were partners, Keith Kretschmer and Gary Shimano. They used to say Bear Stearns was a Jewish firm, and they said they weren't. That's bullshit. They were. But when I was the Goyim White Hope when I came in.
And a lot of Italians.
And so, so my stock went down in value. I got thrown out of the company that I founded. I lost 65, 70% of all my money at that time. I won a big lawsuit, wrongful termination, and I really didn't think it was that hard turning $800 into $450 million. I really didn't. But I got a big mouth. My alligator mouth overloads my hummingbird ass daily. Not dissimilar to the president. Full disclosure, I knew the president in another lifetime. And so I decided, one of my real bright friends said, "Well, why don't you teach people how to do this? Because I never have to work again." And so I said, "Okay." And so I set the goal, 1 million millionaires, $1 trillion. I thought it'd take me 6-7 years. It took me 24 years. 24 years. Because I underestimated the lack of self-esteem people had and the lack of self-confidence, which, I've had almost all my life. And so I've been doing this, and we're now at 2.3 trillion that we've, through what I call the meatheads, raised, and because of President Trump being in office, and his economics are very akin to my model working, I've decided to continue coaching at least until he gets thrown out of office or until he runs his term. He announced a couple of days ago that he thinks he won't run another time. Well, I hear through the grapevine
he's going to run another time.
Well, but he's hitting roadblocks. The Supreme Court, one or two of the justices, I'm not sure which, I'm not sure if it was Thomas or not, says that because they have to rewrite the Constitution for him to run another time, which we all know that anybody knows that's so what. He'd say, so what? We can rewrite the Constitution, and I continue to coach and I continue to enjoy it. And we had 100 of my more illustrious mentees the last 3 days, and it's remarkable that I underestimated what used to be called the personal development business, which is now called a bunch of other things. I had no idea that it had this many legs. I didn't think it had this much staying power, because most of the people out there, as you well know, teach bullshit.
That's actually how I actually got into doing this. From all these guys who are absolutely full of shit, and I'll call them fake gurus. They get into my space, which is real estate. They get into the space and they do 15, 20, 25, 30 deals, and they think they're a fucking expert. 41 years I've been working my ass off in this business to build buildings. Primarily our business is apartments, multifamily space. And this young kid here got me out of my comfort zone, do a reaction video that for against my friend Grant Cardone, who was mad at me for a while. Now we're friends again. I guess associates. I mean, I never hung out with him, but we're in the same space.
Are you in the same space as his wife?
I'm in the same space with his wife. I think his wife's beautiful.
Ah,
She's beautiful.
I think she's gorgeous and smart.
Yeah, yeah, and I think she drove him to a lot of success. And my mother was the one who sold me my first deal when I was in college, and my dad was an old-time stand-up dentist. And thank God that my Grandpa Milton, that was my dad's dad, who wore a three-piece suit to work every day. Thank God that he was in the real estate space, because he was the one that took care of his sons. So my dad had three brothers and a sister. One was a judge, lawyer, and then two were both dentists. And then I have two cousins that were dentists, and I didn't want to become a dentist because I didn't want to stick my hands in people's mouths. And you want to know the funny thing was, I was terrified of my dad. And today, and I know you and I agree upon this, how do you think today's parents are so different, are so afraid to take a hard line with their kids?
Because they want to be the kids' friends. Most of the kids that we or my mentees compete against would rather be liked than effective. Okay, and that started about 30, 35, 40 years ago. And the parents, because of the lack of role model, the farther you get away from the Second World War in that generation, the weaker the parents are. We're the average of the five people we spend the most time with. You may have had, perhaps you had both parents around. My dad was always gone, so I had a loving and nourishing mother. I had one grandparent who was a ball buster, and one grandparent that was a loving and nourishing mother to my mother. And I had a cousin, and I had a next door neighbor, Stein. Okay, now what the fuck do they know about raising high performance people? Nothing. They don't anything. But my dad believed spoil the rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. And so he didn't invent tough love, but he was one of the first guys in the 50s when I was growing up. And I rebelled against it. I tried to kill my teacher when I was in the 5th or 6th grade.
Was it a big aquarium?
Actually, it was about as big as that arm, thin, long, and I could barely, in fact, we've got pictures on my side that I could barely get it over the window. And that teacher that I almost killed wound up, there are pictures of him all over the school because he was the teacher of the century. But he used to put me, every day I'd come to school when I was in his grade, I think it was 5th grade, I'm standing in the corner. Then after a couple hours, I'm standing in the corner with a dunce cap. Then I'm in the closet with the dunce cap off because the closet wasn't high enough for the dunce cap and I. I was in the principal's office at least 2 times before lunch, at least 2 or 3 days a week. My dad and my mother used to have to come pick me up at school. My dad was an active cop, so he used to send a patrol car to come and pick me up, to take me home, which is only 3 blocks, and or take me to the church. It's another 3 blocks the other way. But I was always in trouble, And I didn't like being told what to do. Although when I fast forward 10, 15 years, when I went off to the military, there were people crying in the barracks the first night, literally crying for their mother. And I said, you weak cunts. I said, this is a fucking country club compared to where I lived. And it was a country club. And that's why, until, God bless him, General Vaughn said, a young man like you ought to make a lot of money. But I did know about General Vaughn at that time. Sandra B. O'Connor, the famous Chief Justice woman, when she was still going to law school, he allowed her while she was in the military during the Korean War to not practice illegally, but practice illegally law while she was in the Army. He had an MBA from Stanford, which I didn't know at the time. But I used to get projects. I was the youngest company commander in European theater at 21. So I got projects the colonels would be doing. Only military, I had budgets of hundreds of millions, which I was very judicious about. And I got all the projects, and I got commendations and awards ahead of the curve. So I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to stay there. I was positive I'd be a 4-star general. But when he said that, all these things, just all the buttons and all the dots connected. And it's been my task, and I've completed it. I only have one task left. I want to go into space and have sex with my wife in space. That's the only thing I haven't done.
We're gonna film it.
Huh? Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. And my wife said, I hope we burn up in reentry then.
What's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Sally.
Sally.
Yeah, she's
Married a long time.
yeah, she's from Yorkshire. She's a chartered accountant, international tax expert, a cordon bleu chef, and a sea captain.
Wow.
She sailed across the Atlantic. And as she pointed out at the party the night before last, and you forgot to tell him I won. Yes, dear, and she won. I always leave that off, but
How many kids?
none between us.
None.
I have 3 from my first wife, and they were all at the party, and they're 43, 42, and our daughter turns 39 next month.
So 3 daughters.
No, 2 sons, and my daughter, the youngest, turns 39 next
Nice.
month, and the boys are 41 and 43, 42 and 43.
Did they enlist in the military?
No.
No.
And none are following me in my footsteps. I want to get back to Cardone though. Some people say,
You know, I challenged him to a boxing match.
well,
And
other
he's-
people have challenged
he's
him
afraid.
too.
He's afraid.
What's
And
the
he's
guy?
3-4 inches taller.
The
than
Wolf
me.
of Wall Street guy.
Jordan Belfort.
Well, one of my
I'll-
mentees.
I'll box Jordan.
Okay,
Belfort.
well, Jordan wanted to wrestle him.
He's a pussy. By the
Okay,
way.
Jordan is.
He's a rat. He's a pussy.
Well, I know he copped
know.
out on all his buddies.
Yeah.
Got a shorter term.
They all do that.
Yeah,
They all do that.
yeah. But I got interviewed about 7-8 years ago by Grant, and the first interview was in his roles to go get coffee, which I didn't really notice the guy in the back seat was filming it. I didn't pay attention, and then we came back for a 3-hour interview, and towards the end of the interview, he said, "I'm not sure I understand your model. Could you explain it to me?" So he explained it to me. And he had 3 or 4 of his financial guys there. He's got very nice offices.
They're
You know,
beautiful. Not it's about 40 minutes from us.
Okay.
So.
and I said, I explained what my conception of what he just told me. He said, yeah. I said, why are you doing it that way? Why don't you have 300,000 units or 3 million units and then start a fund and then take 2% off the top?
And he did.
Exactly.
He copied exactly what you told him to do. He used the Jobs Act to exploit it. And he does something that is legal in the SEC's eyes, but in an old school real estate guy, and I've syndicated deals before, we use mostly institutional equity from mid-tier PDs, or we've done a lot of business with the Ohio Retirement Teachers Pension Fund. People who have money, they just don't know how to do what we do.
Did you see Toronto?
Pardon?
Pension fund? Toronto teachers?
No, Ohio
Okay, well,
Retirement.
Toronto teachers, well, I've said this so many times, used to be the easiest touch. If you fit their parameters, it was almost like a cookie cutter. As long as you were within the parameters and you didn't drop their ROI of the gazillions that they have, less than 7.05. And so,
Easy to achieve.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
easy to
I know.
achieve. So Grant does this, which we call front running. So he forms his fund, and then he buys a deal, and then he buys the deal in an entity, an SPE, single purpose entity,
Mhm.
and then sells the membership interest to the fund at a premium.
Mhm.
And then he takes the difference. Some goes into a reserve account that guarantees the cash flow, and then some goes into his pocket. And if he took all the money and just put it all to work, he'd probably have 25,000, maybe 30,000 units. But instead he has 12. But his buying profile is very narrow. He only buys A deals, and he buys them at such low cap rates, sometimes sub 3.
I didn't know that part.
We bid against him. This young man's family, they own about 15,000 units all over the country. And we have a different model. We buy a deal and we revitalize the inherent value of it because it's already there. Now I've built about 5,000 units, some for sale, some to operate, and it's much easier to buy an existing deal. It's much easier to take it from one level to another level. It's very easy, and when you start to do it, you actually realize it's not such a hard business. The social media business is 10 times harder doing this. And as I said in the beginning, you're a major figure in this space. And I was very nervous. I don't get nervous about anything. I mean, I'm like you. I want to meet a girl, I'm going to go ask her out. Okay? All you're going to do is, what's the worst thing you do? Say no.
A little segue. About 10, 12 years ago, we had a guy come to the seminar. He just wanted to know how to be more forceful in front of women and date and actually get laid. So he goes to the seminar, and then he's at the 24 Fitness in Midtown Manhattan. He's running next to this girl for 3.5 years, 4:30 in the morning. Same girl, hi, how are you? So after he leaves the seminar, he just wanted to ask her out for a cup of coffee. And she said, words to the effect, 3.5 years to ask me for a cup of coffee. Well, the answer would have been no 3.5 years ago, and it's still no today. Okay? So he put on, is it Reddit? I think Reddit. Mm-hmm. That what he came to the seminar to accomplish, he failed. Then he got hundreds of responses. What are you, a cunt? What's wrong with me? But Grant is, I wish him all the luck in the world. But
I actually, as a guy, I actually like him. As he is in the real estate social media space, he's the, who's the greatest? He's the MJ. He's Michael Jordan. He's it. Now, there's a lot of guys that are really good at what they do. Grant, his model is just different than the way I was raised, because I always worked hard to create value. And coming from a real estate background, coming from a mother who was a commercial broker who sold me my first deal, and she told me exactly what to do, how to do it. She found me my first investor, which was my dad. And I'll never ever, I could never thank my mother enough for what she did, because she then found me my second, my third, my fourth, my fifth, my sixth deal. So by the time I got out of college, I had 58 units. But I want to ask some more controversial questions.
Sure.
And today, you say most men are soft. Why are they so soft?
Well, the role models were soft. I mean, I had a kid that came to the party who was my chauffeur while I was at UCLA undergrad. And on my 38th birthday, when I decided to run 38 miles, 4 days after my second son was born, and he's a real estate developer in Palos Verdes now. He's 65 now. Okay. He says, you were my role model all those years I worked for you while he's working his way through school. Mm-hmm. I'm either the father or the grandfather most people never had. But it's woke and has increased the desire of the last generation and a half. They feel entitled, unfortunately, COVID didn't help matters, because they were allowed to work from home, okay? But slowly but surely, about 2.5 years ago, I said, we're going to be doing away with the diversity programs eventually. We're going to be doing away with working at home eventually. The CEO of AT&T just announced last Friday that come January 1, they're right now 4 days a week you have to be in the office. In January, it's going to have to be 5 days a week, or find another job, okay? And many of them...
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know how... both of my kids work virtually, It's tough to be having them accountable. But the biggest difference in why they're soft, there's no accountability for anything. Johnny gets a first. It's another chance, another chance, another chance. It reminds me in Manhattan about 4 or 5 years ago, a 80-some-odd-year-old guy just got off on with no probation for his 26th conviction. Why would he be worried about going to prison? And now he's so old they don't want to put him in prison. And then the prison population is a whole other problem.
Huge.
Yeah, and so they're just weak. But
Hang that on the liberals.
well, I hang it. Well, QLA takes advantage of the Achilles heel of humanity. Everybody wants to be liked except us. You know, if we're not there, if I don't believe in win-win deals, somebody's got to win more.
Of course.
Yeah, but people want to, and they teach at the B schools win-win tradition, which I don't understand what tradition that could very well be. And the people during World War II, when we're talking about how we bombed Gaza, not we, Israel has bombed Gaza with the assistance of a few countries. We bombed Dresden, Germany, killing hundreds of thousands of people in 36 hours. And there wasn't any bleeding hearts screaming about,
no,
we're at war.
No.
Yeah. And when I went to Germany in 1951, during the Korean War, my dad was an army officer, and he was able to bring his family. And I saw Berlin flat, Dresden flat, Munich flat, all these cities flat. And it took 40, 50, 60 years for Germany to repay the money. Okay. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Is Gaza going to have to pay? No, I haven't heard that yet.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not.
But we've gotten soft. Mr. Trump, the president, and he really does have a softer underbelly. But none of the shit that we're talking about now is part of it. Okay? He's got a soft spot for Scotland because his mom comes from there, not too far from where I live. But that's about the only soft spot he's got.
Plus, he's got a couple deals there.
Yeah, of course he does. The golf courses.
He's got to preserve them.
Yeah.
And make sure the tax advantages are well.
Yeah, and he's doing the best he can. But you go to those areas, and nobody's got to say anything bad about the president because he actually put up the money. He did what he said he was going to do, which you and I both know. You promise him anything. This should be a commercial. Promise them anything and give them arpege. I mean, and most of the people are getting a lesser product, not at a lesser price, but at the same price because it's part of the sales process. And nobody wakes up. And nobody wakes up. And I was the only person to call negative oil back in February, March 2020. And people asked me. I thought it would go negative 24. It went negative 37. And the pundits, the guys on CNN and CNBC, and has any of them been to Cushing, Oklahoma, where they swap the wet and dry? No. Has any been? No. And I said they're using at that time 1920 methods for at that time a 2020 problem, and it's like nobody in that part of the world, the Midwest, Middle America, thinks we're ever going to have flying cars. There's not enough.
There are flying cars.
Oh, well, I mean, we're like in the
Well,
movies.
what about here's a big thing. What about this crazy currency, Bitcoin?
Well, I said
You say zero. I say a million.
Okay, well, as Jimmy Dimon, I'm not using him as a excuse, but a year ago he said on.
I like Jimmy Dimon, by the way. That's my bank. So. Good to me.
JP Morgan gave me a luncheon 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
In Century City.
Wait. Hold on. I need to know what they served because I can't tell you if it was nice or not.
What did they serve? There was no kosher food.
None. That's why I was.
Well,
invited.
okay, if it was kosher, nobody told us. Okay, it had Mexican food, ribs of some description. It was a buffet. Nah, I pretty much bet a lot of money there was no kosher food there. Jimmy Dimon Jewish?
No.
Okay. Well, Jimmy Dimon said about a year ago, if my customers want to buy dog shit, I'll make a market in it. Okay. But I also missed. I had the opportunity to buy Microsoft sublicense for Canada. I passed it up.
Wow.
I had the opportunity to buy Nike, same thing, in Canada. I passed it up. Because I did a huge deal, the option deal, and And so every deal was fairly big, was brought to me, and if I didn't understand it, very much like Warren Buffett, I didn't do it. I just jumped on. I was asked to be a chairman of an AI deal, and I didn't pass it by. And I told everybody, I don't know anything about this or almost anything, but they want me to be chairman because they know I can get shit done. I don't. I mean, I'll get it if I got to knock your teeth out, pull you through my asshole. And so I said, I can do that because this is our goal. But I want you to know, I can't fill in any of the spaces here to tell you. And so, but Sally was happy, my wife, because I've turned a lot of things down because if I don't understand, if I don't really think I can add value, I don't want, I don't want to do it. So I got a big chunk of equity. Thank you guys for offering it to me. About something, one of the first times in my life, I don't know. But I know how to get the money. That I know how. Mm-hmm. Okay. I can get the money for anything almost, except for probably rebuilding Gaza. I mean, I know.
Probably.
Yeah, I know how to get
the money. You probably put a Starbucks there.
Yeah. Well.
You get the money for that.
Yeah. But, well, they're soft because there's no benefit for being hard. There's no benefit for being, just like the example I just told you about AI. The only benefit I bring is that I have a long 50-year history of getting shit done. Against the grain doesn't make any difference to me. Doesn't matter the politics to me. None of that matters. So I'm adding value in that way, but I'm not adding value in parenthood. I was taught that difference between right and wrong, manners, etc. In my day, rightly or wrongly, kids should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. You're not old enough to have a goddamn opinion. And my dad even used to tell my kids, his grandkids, I'll tell you when you're old enough to have an opinion. Okay. And now it's just the opposite. And if you want to restrain your kid, or God forbid you put a black and blue mark on him,
Well, it's amazing today. Nobody raises their hand, and 15 years younger than you. When we got out of line,
correct,
we got our ass kicked. Until I actually learned, my father couldn't catch me when I was about 11 because I was faster than him, and he would chase me, and then I'd get out of the house and he could never catch me. But when I least expected it, I'd get it.
Yeah,
it was always a sneak attack. Okay, and he would lull me into thinking it had passed.
He forgot,
and then I get a smack.
Yeah.
And he said, "You know what that's for 2 weeks ago, for saying something slick to me." I'm like, "What did I say slick?" And he's like, "You're gonna get another one," and I would get another one because I was in striking distance, and he was fast.
Well, I used to get beat 3 times. The nuns or the priests the first time, and I saw no sexual abuse in my experience with the church, Catholic Church, which I was just knighted by recently. Thank you. So I get it then when I got home, the nuns would have a note to my mother, so I get smacked again. And then my mother used to put a thing on the refrigerator with a magnet. What are you writing down? He says, I'm writing for your father whenever he comes home to make sure. And I get it again, whether it was 3 months later, I'd still get a smack.
Did your mother say, "Wait until your father comes home"?
Yeah.
I used to get that.
Or she'd say, "Are you sure you don't want to do this, Danny?" Well, I'm going to have to call your father. Now, I now know he didn't have a phone number to call. But then I was terrified. And then when he'd come and they'd drop him off, and I didn't know he was a CIA hitman at that time. I just thought, he's gone a lot, what the hell. But he was brought out of retirement in '68 to handle the government investigation of the Sirhan assassinating Robert Kennedy. So the theory then was, or now, not then, they took a spook out of retirement to cover up because there were 11 shots and Sirhan only had a 6-bullet gun. Okay. Now, I never asked my dad this question. My kid brother, who's 65, asked him, and he just kind of smiled and said, "It must have been ricochets they heard." Now, I never heard that from my dad's lips, but my kid brother says that's the answer my dad gave. And there's been a lot of books written, but he, yeah. And so, but he was familiar with, JFK assassination. He was in Guatemala when Che Guevara was assassinated. He used to.
Around it.
Yeah, he used to run a department at Langley, the school called the Dirty Tricks Department, and his nickname, the real class was when to shoot, when you can have a righteous shoot, and the real answer was when you can defend a righteous shoot, even if it's not righteous. And my dad his nickname was Blow 'em Up, and he says that when there's only one witness, you don't have to worry about witnesses. And so that's who raised me. I found out a lot of this laterally, but he was hard as fucking nails. Didn't have a dad. His dad died in 1918. But I had my other grandfather rode with Pancho Villa in 1905. Helped him take over as president. I only met him once, and he had a 2.5 million hectare hacienda. That's 5 million acres. Mm-hmm. And when my grandmother left him, when he took 2 other wives before he got rid of his first wife. But down there, you get rid of the wife. You don't just keep getting them. Mm-hmm. And so my grandmother.
That was my father's best advice about getting rid of the first one.
Yeah. And so my mother and grandmother came across the border illegally in 1924. And my mother was illegal until, I think, 1951, from 24 to 51. And my grandmother didn't get legal until about 5 years before she died. And she was 94 when she died. And the presidents give these special dispensations. If you come in now, give up all your guns and blah, blah, blah. And she slipped through in one of those. But right now, I don't know for sure if I still have illegal cousins. But I know in the last 20 years, I must have had. And I'm from East LA, the other BH, Boyle Heights, not Beverly Hills. And it's, it hasn't changed anything. But getting back to your question, in the Latino community, parents still hit kids. Okay, I can't speak for the Black community, but I know in the Blue Nose, Richie Bitchy communities, they don't.
No,
they don't. Okay, it just doesn't happen.
No, we never struck. I have 4 daughters. Never struck the kids, although I wanted to,
mm-hmm.
but my wife would not allow that. And
so your daughters were raised in a Jewish family.
We're raised in a Jewish family. Okay. We used it wasn't more of about a timeout. We used to count to 3. They're well behaved, successful. 2 are lawyers, but they don't practice law. And then one is a digital marketer, and they've built their own food channel since 2015. They're very successful.
Kosher?
Non-kosher. They eat pork.
The goyim, everybody.
My Madison, who's going to give me my first grandchild, has a nice guy, non-Jewish husband, and you can't really. What are you going to say?
Well, only line I used to draw is that I believe in some kind of God. That's the only I don't get really.
She's happy. He's good to her. I don't say much. I'm much more opinionated with my youngest daughter, who's actually here. She's out in the car with her new dog. He's actually my dog, but and her dog, but she calls it her dog. And he's a little puppy. The cutest little thing you ever saw, but scared of his own shadow. He was abused, beat up dog, but he's coming around. He's terrified of Tanner. He's definitely terrified of Tanner. So
he doesn't look much like a devil to me.
No, he's not. These are great young men, but they come from amazing stock and very disciplined and driven. Not like Chris is 22, Tanner's 21. Not not today's entitled kids. They work, and they work hard. So why are the wealthy? What's the biggest lie that the wealthy people in this country are telling the poor people to keep them poor?
You can still have it all. And you just can't. That's like our kids. My kids went to blue nose kind of schools, and all the kids that they hung with were told that you can be the president of the United States. Now, a couple of them were like Rockefeller and Firestone. Yeah, okay, they weren't lying to those kids.
No.
Okay, but some of the kids, the new money kids, I've always wondered how the Clintons got through that. But anyway, because they're rich now, but they certainly, when they started his political career, but they tell them like you can have it all, and the laws that the president has either done by direct order, whatever it's called, executive order, has a slant towards the wealthy. It just does, but the world's not going to change. It just isn't. I mean, it's not utopia, and socialism is not utopia, and communism is sure not utopia. But we had a Russian kid at the last seminar who's the son of one of the oligarchs. I didn't tell the class because I knew who he was, and he thanked me when he left. He says, "Thank you for not telling anybody. It's nobody's business, But when the wall came down, three of people that Putin picked to cut up the vast resources, I trained. They came to the castle. I trained. The former head of the president of Hungary, I trained, And so these guys came because they had heard the QLA model is an mafia model without a gun.
I like that.
Okay, well, I'm allegedly responsible for taking the Medina drug cartel from $5 billion to $35 billion a year.
That's a nice return.
Yeah.
That's nice growth.
Yeah, and the three guys that they sent to the seminar were like South American movie stars.
Handsome.
Oh fuck, they were wearing $10,000 suits and $8,000 loafers, and they just look, they were the original debonair, suave guys. But the head lawyer for the Mexican Mafia came to the seminar 2 years ago. Okay, and if you'll notice in the videos, we've only blocked out faces 3 times in 30 years. One of them was for him. One of them was for a high-ranking Jew politician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one of them was with the drug cartel guys. But of course, they have the ability to use the gun. In addition, even though the QLA model is the mafia model without a gun, because we give them, and I should thank the programs on TV now, Billions or Billionaire Billions, whatever, and Succession. I happen to know Brian Cox from Succession, but even if you only got an estate of $500,000,
I like what's it, Bobby Axel? In Billions, I actually like him.
Yeah, but it shows how you can have dipshit kids, for sure. But you can have a dipshit kid if your estate's with $500,000 or $50 billion. And the last thing anybody wants to do, if you're a working stiff or blue collar guy, is to have your money, if you're intestate, go to the government. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that's part of the new sales pitch. Although we have a waiting list, and I don't give seminars around the world. I only give them at the castle a few times a year.
Why did you want to have a castle?
Because I wanted to be near the home of golf, and when I made a few $100 million, which I thought was a lot of money at the time, and I didn't have to.
It is. It still is today.
Okay. Well, this was 40 years ago, so I haven't had to work in a long time. College kids at Oxford.
But you work. You're not stop. You don't
No,
stop doing anything.
At Oxford, they say, Mr. Peña, how do you get up every morning? I didn't understand the question. Excuse me. And I said, could you please? And he was with his mother, and his mother was wearing a tight yellow sweater. A well-endowed mom, good-looking mom.
I'll look.
Yeah.
You got her number?
And no, I didn't get her number. But then she stood up behind her son and said, what my son is trying to say is, his father and me, his mother, get up because we have to pay the bills. We didn't have to pay to get him in at Oxford, but you have to pay the bills. And he wants to know, how do you get up every morning? I said, I haven't really thought about that, but I'm driven. I'm driven. So I moved to Scotland to be near St. Andrews. I moved to Scotland. I used to play golf for at least 36 holes a day. And then I ultimately, in the 95, 94 era, I built my own golf course on my estate because I got tired of going to St. Andrews and Carnoustie and a few other great courses. But that's how I wound up in Scotland. And I've done very little business in Scotland because I moved there for a couple of reasons, because they were trying to, at some level, they look at kidnapping your kids for money. Mm-hmm. And so that happened to me about 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And so we decided, I bought this estate was built initially in 1468, and it's laid out like a battle plan. The main keep and castle's here, and then it's got nothing but open area, so you can see everybody. And we've been there, and of course, my wife has dumped a lot of money into it. It's the single worst investment I've ever made because there is no ROI. Okay, and I've got a whole bunch of money poured into it. Every single day, something breaks. You're lucky if it's a $2,000 deal. Sometimes it's a $40,000 deal, but every day something breaks.
Wow.
And but it's why I'm there and why I continue to stay there. But when I turned 60, we started downsizing. We sold all our stuff around the world. Mm-hmm. I thought I could do it in a couple of years. It took me 7 years to get rid of all, not, I call it shit, get rid of all the shit. And we sold houses and penthouses and farms and antiques and paintings that we couldn't put in the house. Mm-hmm. Lloyd's of London, you mentioned, which I was asked to be a member, but I didn't do it. Said it was, this is a long time ago, one of the most finely appointed houses in all of Britain. But most of my neighbors, the wallpaper's fallen off. They have worn, this is worn thin, the couches. The carpets have worn holes in them because, it costs money to maintain these places in a reasonable state. Even in a non-reasonable state, it costs a lot of money. And so, and it goes in the Trust for Scotland, Heritage Trust. When I first bought it 40 plus years ago, said, we're going to help you, dollar for dollar, pound for pound. Well, I'm still waiting for the first check for 50,000 pounds. Okay. But I had to lay water lines there. Didn't have direct water. I had to lay gas lines, electric, and I bought a, what do you call it?
So you modernized it.
Well, modernized the fact that, we don't have to stop living if everything freezes up. Now, the kids like not having to take baths when the water froze up. But put in a septic tank that was supposed to be for life. I've replaced it 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, people say, there's a lot of shit that comes out of Dan's mouth. I have no idea how much comes out of his ass. So anyway, why we had to have 3 septic tanks. But we pay what's called the mileage surcharge. For every mile that your driveway is, you got to add 30%. And I have a long driveway. And so...
and you have to pay that.
They just back it into they don't tell you it's a surcharge.
Into the tax.
Yeah, but I know my neighbors who have never replaced their roads, and it looks like 14th century cobblestones. Mm-hmm. And we've replaced the tarmac in our driveway, which is about a mile long. And I just found out, a couple of days ago.
You landed your plane there?
Pardon?
You landed your plane there?
Yeah. No. I've landed a plane on the golf course, but not in a long time. But I don't have planes and yachts and that kind of stuff anymore. I used to be able to land at the Marine base back in a friendlier time, but now, the Marines, and I'd go to jail. Because you can't land a private plane unless you're the president or the prime minister on a military base.
Amazing. Why is the youth today so financially screwed? Is it because of the avocado toast? Or they're just soft?
Soft. They believe, they rather be liked. At the party, the last 3 days, a couple of the guys brought their older children. And their father and I have been in business, 10, 15 years. He's got 2 daughters and a son. The one daughter went to USC, University of Spoiled Children here, and one went to American University on the East Coast.
I never heard that. I like that.
Yeah. University of South Carolina doesn't like that because they're also USC. And the young 23-year-old, they just got out of school, has got an opinion on everything. And he's got, I don't like to use the term pay your dues, because in a lot of sense, I never paid any dues. That legacy doesn't deserve more money. Legacy gives you experience and knowledge to earn more money. But the kids today feel that the people in the 80s, which I was part of, that ripped the guts out of the financial market. But I've never seen energy in Wall Street, London, Tokyo, Paris, like I see now. The only time I've seen it like this is in the 80s. the Ace Greenberg, who I knew well.
Came to our wedding.
Yeah. Cy Lewis, his boss. Cy, he was the original founder of Bear Stearns. And he had, to get him, no matter where in the firm, you just dialed one. And he picked up another chair with a cigar in his mouth. And it was sad when all that money went down the toilet.
A lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So talking about money, you've built multiple fortunes.
Yep. Not just for me.
Right. For many other people.
For many people.
How do you allow, or how do you not allow the obsession to have great wealth cloud your judgment in passing it on to your 3 children?
Just like the 10 Commandments, I have 11 commandments to me, and one of which is that and the 11th just got added. That's why I took over as chairman of the AI. I never used to do anything I didn't understand. Okay, now I know after 50 years and a lot of mega fortunes that just my knowledge in general business is worth whatever I would get out of a startup. But almost all our money, my wife and I's money, is in a thing called the Peña Foundation, which about 95% of my entire net worth is going to go to charities. We already support 15, 18 charities, some of which are here in Southern California. Now my kids say they're all right with not getting any money. Now I know that's not true. I wasn't born yesterday.
No, they're not okay.
Yeah, I know they're not. But the way we had set up the irrevocable trust 30, 35 years ago, what they don't tell you when they charge you $500,000 to do this or $1 million to do it is the laws can change. And just because you think that it's forever, it's like my septic tank that was forever. It's not forever. So we've had to make a couple of changes, which have been expensive. When J. Paul Getty died, 99% of his net worth was in a foundation that never paid taxes, not one penny. Okay, we're set up that way now. We didn't used to be, so I paid a lot of taxes in my life. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Makes you making money.
Bunker Hunt told me, I used to be a junior partner with Bunker Hunt, the Hunt family. And Bunky used to say,
He was one of the guys that tried to corner the market on silver.
I was part of that.
You were part of that?
And I'm the only guy that didn't go to jail. Bunky used to say, Danny, when you're worried about taxes, you're not making enough fucking money. And his wife used to pick us up at the airport in a 1977 Oldsmobile. I remember it like it was this morning. He had a crack from the lower left-hand part of the windshield to the upper right-hand part of the windshield, crack. Where the radio should have gone was empty, okay? He had a transistor radio hanging from the mirror. And so Mrs. Hunt would say, Mr. Peña, I know I couldn't get any of the other cars, and I'm embarrassed to pick you up in this car, but Bunky won't let me fix the windshield. Now, Bunky's sitting right next to me. I don't have to say anything, then she spits out, because he says it's not covered by insurance. And he won't do it. And you notice we don't have a radio like you have a radio. It's hanging right here. He says it didn't add value. Now, he's sitting right, and we used to fly coach on American Airlines, and he'd take at least 2 seats, okay, in the front row, not in first class, in the front row, and they would take a seat out for him, and he used to eat 3 of the dinners, or whatever the meals were, 3, and I would eat 1 and sit there, and he says, you can sit here. So I've been around Ross Perot. I had the privilege of being around a lot.
Ross is known for being frugal also.
And short, we're in the Houstonian. Now, he's there because you have a board meeting, and I'm there because I'm advising the board. And so we're in the bar, and he's having a sarsaparilla. Mm-hmm. I mean, it transcended being ruthless. But the kids want that kind of fame, but they don't want to make the sacrifice. I'm not saying everything he did was right. A lot of things he did was wrong. But a lot of things that the president, in hindsight, may be considered wrong. But I've been privileged to be around a lot of super mega guys. When I was in the Onassis group, I was the only non-Greek in the hierarchy. I was like a goyim in Israel, or a shiksha
Well, it's funny because I was reprimanded by not calling people goyim. We call them non-Jews.
Goyim's not.
My rabbi said no, it's disrespectful. Just call them non-Jews. Because,
Jesus.
Yeah. I know that you say this, and I'm just going to go on a tangent. In my lifetime, my former father-in-law, who I got along with great, his name was Stewart, was a lawyer, and then was from Brooklyn, took over a public insurance company called Security Mutual, and made a fortune on it. And the best way I can say how he made a fortune is he took his stock options and he took photographs. He took copies of them, Xerox copies. Remember Xerox back in the day? And he went from bank to bank and he gave them as collateral and he borrowed against them so he could exercise them. Obviously, statute of limitations, 100 years now. He's still alive. And he made himself a virtual fortune back in the 50s doing this. And that's how he became so ultra wealthy. And I actually really got along with him fabulously. But as soon as I decided to divorce his daughter, and I still don't even know how it happened, how my penis ended up in my secretary's mouth. It just happened. It was just one of those things. I'm like, how did this happen? What's going on here? But two deals. One was a company called Boston Chicken.
I know it.
And they had opened up 3 stores and they were looking for money. My lawyer came to me and said, these guys are building this chicken franchise. Go try the food. I took my wife, her name was Susie, and we went there, and it was probably the best chicken, rotisserie chicken, cornbread that I had in a long time, or forever. I wasn't really a big chicken guy. And the second was a little water company in Vermont that needed some money called Poland Springs. And we both agreed to do both the investments. And the day before, I had already sent my money to our attorney. He backed out. And I couldn't do the deals because my wife would have stabbed me. And I had to gracefully back out of deals. And we know Boston Chicken became Boston Market. And we know Poland Spring is, one of the bigger water companies. But your position is water rights.
This much water will be more than a gallon of gasoline.
Is that why Ted Turner owns so much land?
He's one of the guys.
Yeah.
Bill, Sir Richard Branson, Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. I had the privilege, if that's you can call it, sitting at 2 of the Ford Foundation board meetings a long time ago. And there's 100 people on the board.
Only one person spoke.
Right. And the guy that was the chairman of the board then was the former mayor of Atlanta, black guy, was ambassador to the UN. His name escapes me right now. And so...
I know who you're talking about.
But Hugh Carey, the former governor of New York, and I, and he brought me, and he liked to drink. Anyway, and so he had too much to drink, but he says, I got to stop by this board meeting, Dan. And so, well, we're running from the Hasidic Jews during that period. And so I said, okay, I went with him, and I see all these guys, and you can see him from the news, and, and then he stands up, and he said, a year ago today, we tabled this motion that was just coming up to vote on. And they just voted to table it again. And he's saying it much more eloquently than I am. And he says, what the fuck, in a year, we tabled the same thing twice. And it was about less water rights or more water rights. And so they didn't want to put it up to vote because everybody, or the smart money, knew that water rights are going to be the thing, the goal, the current fad. But I mean, and of course, Mr. Gates has been behind now and putting money where his mouth is, funding these patents for the next pandemic, which we pretty much all know is going to happen. whether it happens now or in the next generation. But the Saudis are buying up water rights, and the irony is when J. Paul Getty discovered oil in Saudi Arabia in 1923 or whenever it was, he was looking for water.
I didn't know that.
And you can literally, this is a slight exaggeration, the depth of this table is some of the oil they're getting out. It costs like 15 cents to get to the surface that far, okay? And then the average cost in the industry is about $50. So they do it for 40 cents. And if the world, I've been saying this for 25, 30 years, if the world knew how many reserves Saudi Arabia really had, oil would be $2 a barrel. Maybe less. They have gazillions.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about it is they are never, as long as Saudi, and even though Saudi, they say Venezuela's even got more, I don't know, I don't believe that. But it was interesting. 10 years ago, Saudi Arabia, which is the country basically, the Aramco, tried to take Aramco. They wanted to get a market value. So they went to Hong Kong, they went to all these places, obscure markets, to try to float it, take it public. Nobody would allow them to not take it public unless there was a reserve report. So they ultimately took it public in Saudi Arabia. And they made it mandatory that all the citizens of Saudi Arabia participate. Okay? But they only sold like 2% of the company because they wanted $1 trillion valuation. This is before the 2 or 3 companies that are at $1 trillion now were going to get close. Because then they wanted to use their balance sheet to finance something else. But when you look at how the countries have cozied up to Saudi Arabia, the new guy, the lawyer kid, he's actually number 3 in the pecking order, but he runs the country. And Saudi is now going to be owning not all the sports franchises, but almost all of them. During the MMA fight that Trump went to a few months ago, he had Elon Musk on one side and the head of the Saudi sovereign fund on the other side. And he's talking to the Saudi guy because they have all the money. And it's just a matter of time. And they have a 50 and 100-year plan. Okay? And they don't really care. They're not interested in what happens in 2-3 years, this, that, and the other thing. And Wall Street has a plan for every 90 days. And if you don't perform against
every quarter.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta hit your numbers.
Yeah, and if you don't, correct. And certain companies like Apple, etc., have done an extraordinary job. And Elon is supposedly at odds now with the president. I don't know if he is or not. But 50 years from now, they're going to call Elon Musk the modern day Michelangelo because he's truly gifted. He's in a league like in a virtual reality. He thinks we're all slopping around in the mud, and he's floating up here. But the real reason we're going to Mars, this is one man's opinion.
Well, your opinion does matter.
Okay,
a lot of people follow.
A lot of people
okay. Follow it and actually religiously try to.
We had a bunch of people short oil and made billions.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that it's supposedly 30 to 40% lithium, Mars, and all the lithium we have on the planet Earth will not fund 7% of the cars that are supposed to be flying someday with the batteries. So the model ends. Elon Musk model ends.
Well, what is Tesla?
Exactly.
They're a battery making company.
Exactly.
That's what they are. The car's a battery. It's one big battery.
Correct. And so that's why and he understands, 1 in 3 rockets or 2 in 3 rockets are going to explode. He understands that. Unfortunately, hopefully with nobody on him. But the big money is, I've already left this planet, unless you're into water. But Saudi Arabia, you can almost scrape it with your hand. That's the difference. I used to be in the business. I drilled 18,000 foot wells in the Gulf of Mexico. And I participated in some 25,000 tests in the North Sea. And every half an hour, we spent $2 million. But I had the fortune that the founder of the North Sea, Robert Dyke, was my founding director with my company that I took public. He was called Dry Hole Dyke. He drilled 88 dry holes in the 89th.
All you need is one.
That's exactly what Bob said. But my reputation grew in that market when we were going public. He says, I've never met a man with more integrity than me. Okay. And so I rode the poor old man virtually till he died on his reputation. But most of the guys would still be spreadsheeting it. You know, I don't know who there's been several great real estate gurus over the years, and there's been several oil gurus, but the Hunt family liked me. The Onassis liked me. So I was hot shit in shipping, even though I didn't know hardly anything about it. But most of the kids today, they research more than that's why I condense my whole philosophy, just fucking do it, into 4 words. And when I raised one of the guys, my mentees, it was at the party, very $600-700 million worth, nice Jewish guy, but he's my age or a little older, and he's afraid. He doesn't trust his kids. He doesn't trust his grandkids. Truthfully, they don't have anything to do with him because they don't like his businesses. Okay, so what's he gonna do?
That's an impossible question, because I am dealing with that myself, because my 3 adult daughters are not coming into the real estate business. My youngest daughter, who I think is pretty smart, I just had this conversation with her the other day. I said, why don't you spend more time at the office? You know, why don't you understand better what I do? And she said, I hear you talking on the phone in the car. She says, it's too complicated for me. I said, it's not. People need a house. People need housing. People need a place to put their head. That's all it is. All you're doing is you're creating a better mousetrap. You're convincing someone that living with you is going to be a better experience than living next door. And that's it. She's like, I still don't understand what you're saying when you're talking on the phone. I'm like, well, that's just the financial side of the deal. So, and I said, I need you to come into this business. Otherwise, I'm going to have more kids. And that means you'll get less. And, you know, she's always...
I haven't thought about that.
She's always telling me, well, Dad, you know, you can't get married again. Or you can't have this girl again or that girl again. And we won't even talk about my 24-day marriage, which is a disaster, and my guys don't want me to talk about it.
You see 24 days.
24-day marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. I threw her out after 21. Packed her stuff up, threw it out of the house.
Was she half your age?
No. No, she was 43.
I see a lot of guys.
She was a con artist. Maybe crazy and a con artist. I think that's probably better.
Are you a benevolent guy?
No way. I mean, yeah, I like to give my money to people who deserve it, people who need it. We believe that we should help other people. And we do, and it's something we do anonymously. Never haven't thought of creating a charitable foundation, but somebody has been whispering in my ear to do it.
I just recently did it last few years,
and I will.
And it does. Somebody asked me the other day during this party. We hear that down deep inside, in your softer underbelly, I don't like that part, that you get a thrill when you see the money help people. And I thought about 100th of a second. I said, yeah, I do. You know, well, that doesn't make me soft, and it doesn't make it a soft underbelly.
No, it doesn't make it soft.
The terms, 98% of the charities on the planet don't fit our model because first thing we ask for is their financials last 5 years. Second thing we ask for is their tax returns last 5 years. Okay. First of all, if they're not plus or minus 2%, 2 or 3%, you don't pass. And then we look how much money actually gets to the kids. The best charity in the world is St. Teresa. 98.5% of all the money, they don't have phones, cars, nothing.
It's run by a bunch of nuns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's our biggest charity. And second biggest is another bunch of nuns called the Holy Family. We built a nunnery in Sri Lanka. There's not a lot of Catholics in Sri Lanka, okay? But I was convinced by the nuns. And so we deal with some superstar nuns that are not getting old, though. I reminded them that they're getting old and they're long in the tooth. And I still remember Sister Luce, she didn't understand what long in the tooth meant.
No.
No. I said, and then she said, you mean I'm getting fatter? Well, you're getting that too, sister, but that's not what I meant. You're getting old. And there's not a second generation or in training.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's but getting back to, I mean, one of the smartest lawyers in London who just retired, he came over to the house for lunch a few months ago. He said, as you've been saying for 30 years, Dan, we're going down, the world's going down in a toilet, and we're ahead of schedule. And we're ahead of schedule. And partially we're ahead of schedule because of the computer. Information that used to take me weeks to find, he can find in seconds. And now with
now with AI, that keeps on reinventing everything every 180 days, and nobody wants to do any work. I know my daughter has done really well in school, but if you get caught using AI, you get thrown out of school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you get thrown out of school. So you can't use it, and I'm sure there are workarounds that make it look like you've done it yourself. But I'm baffled by it. But you've made multiple billionaires.
Correct. 56.
56.
Correct.
56. Do they call you and
Well,
thank you on a daily basis?
No.
Because they should.
No. Well, the 3 or 4 of them I still get. I got 3 birthday cards from on the internet yesterday from 3 of them. The one's 56 billion, one's 7 billion, and one's about 15 or 18 billion. I have only 1 billionaire on my website, and he's a 24 fitness guy. And because the other, I mean, they don't want to, they're embarrassed by the fact that because a lot of the guys I know still don't consider me a finance person. Okay, even though I made a lot of money in finance.
It's a common sense person.
Yeah, exactly.
And today the world lacks common sense.
Yeah, and a few of them have gone. They were woke, and now they've gone even woker. That's not maybe a word. And so they just the various synagogues that I've supported over the years, and the Catholic Church think I'm a genius. Okay, and I don't put much.
I think a lot of people would agree.
Yeah, but I don't put much pressure. We had 2 priests at my party the last few days who were there to bless everybody and stuff like that. I tried to get the rabbi. My rabbi is in the war, Israel. Okay, and if you go on, he's the first rabbi to be serving rabbi in Saudi Arabia at Neom, that the city of the future, which is a Peña project that Klaus Kleinfeld, God love him, was the first CEO. He's the Renaissance man. And so, of course, Rick Scott founded the largest healthcare company in the history of the world, Columbia, who's the current senator for the state of Florida. But
good guy.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And I still remember we were at the Park Lane Hotel. We just closed a deal. I put about $40 million in my pocket. And he says, Dan, I got to do what you do. Well, you can't do it with me. I've trained you. So I put him in touch with the Bass brothers in Fort Worth, Texas. And they said, I don't know which of the brothers asked him, do you have any money? He says, I have $100,000, my life savings. He bought Dunkin' Donuts shops to work his way through college and law school, Rick Scott did. And he says, well, you got to put, unlike Peña, we demand skin in the game. And so, but anyway, he put up $100,000 and he turned that into 40, 50 billion in Columbia Healthcare, which he had 2 or 3 billion. And then the government tried to put him in jail, and Hillary Clinton, etc. So we have a lot of these guys, but I don't know if I was senator of Florida, if I'd be embarrassed that Rick taught me. Okay, I don't think I would. I give everybody credit. I wish the Onassis people were still alive, who really, I mean, they don't have a personnel department. You worked there 45 years. You come in, you're going to retire next year. You got something wrong with your teeth. They look at your mouth. Oh, that's $5,000. You write your check. That's their health program. And Mr. Glatzos, the CEO, the right-hand man of Aristotle Onassis for about 60 years, he said, you remind me of a young Aerie. And and I had a similar with Toyota and a few of the other companies, because the guys that found these companies didn't fuck around. They took action. And then when they were wrong, they just took the heat. And I've certainly been wrong plenty of times, that's for sure. I could write a book.
There's nothing wrong about being wrong.
No, I understand it, but the kids don't want to be wrong. Current generation. These kids would rather have
So
a career of 100% rights.
here's a controversial question. Me sitting here wearing a yarmulke. So who's the greatest salesman of all time?
Jesus.
Jesus.
Or Muhammad. I mean, one of those guys.
Because one of my guys was telling me that you have a picture of Hitler
Ah!
on your desk.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant religious guy. No. Adolf Hitler's the greatest salesman that ever lived.
Yeah.
How do you get people to do what they did? I mean,
You sell.
yeah,
You
he was
you
a seller.
convince them.
And I studied the sales process. I studied Hitler's mannerisms. The one picture he's got, his favorite picture, he supposedly made 10,000 poses before it was the right picture. Okay. And I studied JFK, Churchill, Hitler, their mannerisms, how they speak. But that's on my wall of influencers behind me. Okay. And I took some heat from people, some Hasidic Jews that came to the seminar, or actually they weren't going to come to the seminar unless I took the picture down. I said, well, fuck off. I'm not taking the picture down. And they came anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's a mitzvah. That's like a miracle, right? A mitzvah.
You know, it's funny. A mitzvah is a commandment.
Okay.
But a lot of people think a mitzvah is a good deed.
Okay.
But we have 613 rules in the Torah, commandments. They're all variation of multiple commandments. So this is a question that Tanner wanted me to ask you. And the question is that I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Because this may take a little while. But because of the way it's changed and the soft nature of parenting or the soft nature of pushing people or the fact that they can look something up and have the answer for in 60 seconds, it's changed. But when you go back to sports and athletics, you can't be soft. You've got to be driven. And that question was, someone said to you, how do you get up? And somebody asked me that question because I get up very early, usually 4:30 in the morning. And they asked me, how do I get up? And I think the answer that I answered was, you just fucking get up. You just wake up and you do your day. Okay? And you do your things. I don't understand how to say, oh, well, you set an alarm clock or you do this. You start getting up early and just get up.
I was up at 4:20 this morning. I worked till 6:15, went back to bed, and then I got up 8 o'clock with my wife. But I often get up. I don't know if it's like an overactive mind. I don't know what it is, but I get up. I work an hour or two, and then I go back to sleep.
I like it in the morning. It's silent. The world hasn't started. I can really think. For me, that's when I do a lot of my writing. But the question is,
go ahead.
You ready?
Yeah.
If you could go back and tell your broke younger self one thing that would change everything, what would it be?
Take faster action. And I was always, the only thing that I'm not quick on the trigger is I don't have early ejaculation. I don't suffer from that. But everything else in my life, I take extreme action. I don't have to spreadsheet anything. Okay. The second thing is that the few people that I had the privilege of being around, like the Onassis group, Bunker Hunt, and that kind of guy, Ross Perot, etc., I would seek more of them out. I was naturally attracted when we were saying about your G4, whatever. Back in the day, Jack McLaughlin, a billionaire guy that I used to be partners with in the oil business, he used to loan me his G2, okay? Mm-hmm. And I used to use his G2 when I flew someplace. And he always used to say, Danny, you got to have a plane you stand up like a man instead of the jets, okay? Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand that until the G2 was.
You got in there.
Yeah, the G2, I could stand up.
Yeah. Well, I can stand up on anything.
Okay, well,
in a sewer, I can stand.
Yeah, okay.
So,
and so I would seek those kind of people out more. And though I wasn't a victim in anything, I listened a little bit too much about conventional wisdom. Somebody from the barrio of the hood, I'm the barrio bad boy that made good, okay, who tried to kill his teacher in the 5th or 6th grade, can't do some of these things. And the first guy from Harvard I fired, and I was telling my Harvard kid on yesterday, one of my mentees, And then the first Stanford guy I fired, who was a Stanford JD MBA. Then I realized those kind of degrees and those kind of schools get you in the door. But what keeps you in the door is performance. And I've always volunteered. One of the things you do when you get in the military, you don't volunteer. But I always volunteered for projects, just like NASA's people. And even if I don't know how to code, nobody ever asked me to code, but I volunteered for a coding job, and I teach myself over the weekend. And so I push harder. And not many people that I've come across in my entire business career, which is 50 plus years now, has pushed as hard as I have. I've got nothing to prove. I'm 80, but I want to be these. I may have wasted 8 to 12 years of my 54 years that I could have been more productive. Well, I plan on my 80s not wasting a fucking day. And so I told the group, unfortunately, a lot of you won't be here at my 90th because you're going to be dead. Just like for my 70th, a bunch of you are already dead. And I said, but for those of you, I'm just telling you already, it's going to be at the castle. We're going back to the castle, which is very conducive to having a 3-day party. And as my wife would say, it doesn't cost us anything, other than the overtime for the servants. But I would listen and seek out people that are where you want to be 20 years from now. And I only learned that when I got out of the military and I was accomplishing jobs that for much more senior guys with much more senior experience. And, and for whatever reason, I'm one of the only 6, my big class. I didn't go to Vietnam, but there was a reason I didn't go to Vietnam. And I'm not so sure that Saint Therese is the shortest period of sainthood. My goal is I want to be a saint while I'm still alive. It only takes 2 fucking miracles. I have thousands of miracles. I already got people lined up. And I said, when I go to see the Pope next month, I will be much more reverent. I'm not going to say it that way. I do know how to keep my mouth shut when I have to. But I mean, I got 10 strong years left, and I plan on using them. Although I have nothing to accomplish. I have no more to prove to myself. But I want to bring as many meatheads across the line to create generational wealth as I can before they pack it in. I wish I had said 10 million millionaires. I only said 1 million, although it took me a long time. I now have the model down to the nth degree. And if guys like Grant benefit, God love them. If people like yourself benefit, although I'm not a real estate guy, I was telling the boys while you were in the bathroom, I said the only money I've ever made on real estate, I bought a house for $5 million, I sold it for $18 million. But I never invested in real estate to make money. It's just, and if I hadn't sold all my houses several years ago, I probably would have had no profits in the real estate. But the real estate is a great game. I'm not a 100% believer. The Lord only made so much real estate, blah, blah, blah. I'm not such a believer in that. And if global warming is for real, which it isn't, Florida and many of your properties are going to be gone.
Underwater.
Correct. But why did Obama buy a $44 million estate 50 meters from the water? Why does Bill Gates have lived on the water for 45 years? Why have all these guys, why do they continue to build places in Manhattan, which will be underwater? Because it's bullshit. It just is.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So who is behind
The bullshit.
Bitcoin? No, who's behind Bitcoin?
Certainly not a Japanese guy in a cave.
Nope.
Nope.
What about a Russian guy?
Well,
a horse with his shirt off.
Okay, well,
What about him?
okay, no. 10 years ago, I said the only 2 people that can benefit from Bitcoin disrupting the U.S. economy are China and Russia. China finally closed it down because it was disrupting them, not us.
Yeah.
And Putin's still alive and well. My money's on, and I know the oligarchs, some of them. One of those guys that benefits. You never hear Putin that I'm aware of ever mention it. And so no news guys ever said, Mr. President, I think that there's good reason why he has never been asked. But I still believe it's Russia. I can't pinpoint, but since I know the oligarchs better than most, there's a couple of high-tech guys like that. But the kids want to believe it's some spiritual guru, 3'8" Japanese guy in some cave, which is just a lot of, I mean, that's, it's like, I believe in dragons, though, so maybe that could be true.
Wait, there are no dragons?
Huh? No, I still believe in dragons. I believed in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and those kind of things till I was a teenager. I used to get in a lot of fights. But you can't have a dream come true unless you have a dream. And I've always been a big dreamer. So I will continue this in my 80s. I don't feel 80s or 80. I liked 77 for some reason. I liked the sound of 77 when I was 77. But you're just a kid to me. My kid brother's your age.
What's his name?
Vince. He just retired after 42 years. He was the #2 guy at the Los Angeles County Fire Department, one of the largest fire departments in the world. And he took tough love from my dad, and he took it up the civil service route. And he's a great kid. And he filled in when I was gone a lot, and wasn't the best father I could be because I wasn't there. When I was there, I'm the best father I can be, but I'm always gone. But you do what you see your role models do. Now, I didn't know my dad was allegedly whacking people all the time he was gone, but he certainly showed me a work ethic. One last example to the snowflakes listening. My dad retired after 28 years as LAPD cop before he went off to the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
He had 715 days, statutory days off he never took. 715.
Did they pay for those?
At the end of retirement.
Yeah.
You still got the money then. So he went some kind of jump 40, 50 grand, which 1970 about, so that was a lot of money. But he never took a day off. And when you see these police programs, it's a 8 to 5 job now, unfortunately. I had an appointment in Frankfurt, Germany, 26 years ago with Klaus Kleinfeld, who became the CEO of Siemens, the 20th largest company in the world,
Mm-hmm.
one of my mentees. And then he went on to be CEO of Alcoa, and he went on CEO of Neom, the future city. And I was in a near fatal accident on Easter 1999. Yeah, Easter night, with my 2 sons racing dune buggies. Anyway, I almost died. And so I rented a plane, got back to California where they tried to fix me up.
Thank God you're here.
But I still made my appointment 48 hours later in Frankfurt, Germany. And when they took me off the plane in a wheelchair with a drip, I'm like this. And Klaus says, "My God, Dan, what's wrong with you?" I said, "I'd fucking be here as long as I was still breathing. I'm fucking here." Now people change appointments if they have diarrhea. Now you cancel appointments because you have a fucking migraine. Nobody cares about your fucking migraine.
That mentality goes back to why the country's gotten soft. Because this was a great country. Back in the day when the news was reported, it was actually accurate.
Correct.
Now it's manipulated for people to think or their own personal private agendas. And one of the things that we're trying to do here is evolve to more of a media company. And
a true sense media.
Yeah. I'll share this with you. We're in the process of, we're going to do an angel round of it to take the company, a pre-round before we take it public. And we're going to copy what this kid, Adam Newman, did with WeWork, because he convinced the whole world that real estate was tech. We're actually a tech company that owns a lot of real estate. Forget my family office. In Shapiro Capital, I'm buying deals with my students. And they're learning how to do things from nothing, with nothing. And it's very satisfying for me, although it is hard. The teaching is hard.
So.
Well, I think the teaching is almost impossible, but they only learn by example. And I don't consider being an example a teaching tool. You didn't used to do what your parents told you to do. You did what you saw your parents do.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
And
lead by example.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's not much of that. When you talk about it, and I talk to many universities, pro bono, all the time. When I was at Wharton a few years ago, and say these things, of course they have a positive chip on their shoulder because they're at Wharton. Okay, just like the Oxford kids. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, they think that their shit doesn't smell, but they have very few professors now in universities, whether the best universities or not the best, that actually have a track record of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
up until about 5 years ago, Wharton, they used to say, I used to say, how many classes have you had in buying a business? None. How many classes have you had in selling a business? None. How many classes have you had in leadership? Except for the Naval Academy, none. So three of the most important things of being in business and being an entrepreneur, you've never had any classes. And now Wharton recently has a class in selling a business taught by a CPA PhD who's never sold a business. Had a great book.
A lot of great books out there. A lot of great books out
But
there.
books, what would you rather have? Read 700 books about sex or having sex once? There's no comparison.
None. I like that.
Getting back to your example
I'm going to use that analogy.
Okay, 700 books or sex once. And even as a PhD buddy of mine at Stanford said, even the worst piece of ass I ever had was pretty fucking good.
You say life is like a numbers game. Why do you think most people quit before they win? And how do you know it's time to pull the trigger?
I'll answer the second half first. It's always time to pull the trigger if it's not a life-threatening situation. What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Nothing.
The worst thing is they're going to be embarrassed. And most of the kids today don't want to engage in self-deprecation. They don't want to embarrass themselves, okay? The first part, so that answers the when to pull the trigger. And the first part of the question again?
You said life is like a numbers game.
One of the greatest salesmen I ever knew, a guy named Walter Levine, he's dead, from Brooklyn. We sat in his limousine drinking champagne. He says, I'm going to ask every woman that comes by here to come and sleep with me. We'll see how many I have to go through before I get a yes. I said, okay, the limit 100, I said.
Okay. How many?
Okay, 17.
17.
He got spit on, kicked in the ball, slapped, and then a really good-looking girl looked at her watch and said, yeah, I got a couple hours. And she said, your place or mine? They opened the back limo door. I'm sitting in the back seat drinking champagne. She stepped in with her long, slinky leg, and she said, oh, you mean it's going to be a threesome? I haven't had a threesome in a while. Let's have some fun. 17.
17.
Sales is the same thing.
You've said before that you're 2,000 calls away from being a
It's
millionaire.
actually 1,400 now.
1,400
Since Corona.
since Corona.
And because Zoom calls, or whatever kind of Zoom calls,
Yeah.
has made it legitimate to meet with people and not meet with people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When it was handshake, eyeball to eyeball, it was 2,000 calls. It's actually 1,406, the data since Corona, for my guys and gals. And I have a few its, guys, gals, and its. It's 1,406 cold calls away. And my deal, you're a short millionaire, like 850, 900,000 in a Western deal, but if it's in Britain, it's about, you're a millionaire because a pound is more than $1. So you're a millionaire after one deal. Because you're not putting up in none of your own money.
Yeah, the return's exponential. Do you think that being overly emotional or sensitive keeps people broke?